Yeah, well, it's been a couple years since we put together one of these videos, and we've gotten some requests in the comments, just kind of asking what I'm up to. So we thought it might be kind of fun to do a little bit of an update. And I just wanted to say I really appreciate that people still watch the videos, and it sure was a lot of fun doing that, and I like to think that people get something out of it, which was really what the purpose of it was. And it's unfortunate that we had to stop, because we did enjoy it. I enjoyed it a lot, and it gave me a chance to talk with people around the world and around the country, and that's something I really enjoy. But that's just the way it is. And so it's been a couple years, and unfortunately, when we stopped filming in the woods, I was just taking, we were just getting delivery of the 470 Hitachi converted by Summit up in Kelso, Washington, converted to a line machine. So since then, I've got, about 2,500 hours tethering on it, and I think I'm up to over 11,000 hours on the LX870D, and I still love it. It's a good machine. It's not young anymore. It's not new. I guess that goes for me. I'm not young anymore, but anyhow, it keeps on ticking, and there's a little bit more love and care that has to go into it, but that's just the way it is. We all understand that. Yeah, they've got the 877, which is a pretty sexy looking beast, but as of right now, that's not in the cards, I don't think. So the tethering has been very interesting, and I have to say that Summit is a good outfit. They're super local. During the week, I stay in my trailer there in Kelso, and they're based right there in Kelso, so you couldn't ask for anything much better than that. And they're a good outfit. I was actually just talking to Max on Friday night coming home. I had a question, and they're very responsive. The machine is strong and simple, and it holds up, and so it's been a good machine. It's big, little boy Lon kind of groans, I think, when I need to move, because it's 120 plus, soaking wet, and that's a load on where he takes me, and I end up walking quite a bit, but that's always the case on these roads. So the tethering, I enjoy it, and I had wanted to do it ever since I saw that what was it there from New Zealand, that Trender engineering machine with the winch in the machine. I saw that sliding down the hill. I was yelling, "Whoa, whoa!" at the computer, and so the tethering's interesting, and I'm always curious. And this part of it, I really appreciate the comments from people, because I'm interested in different ways of doing things, and I think as loggers we all are. And so for me, I think the thing about tethering is that the actual tethering, once you're over the hill and whatnot, it's just cutting, but you have you have some more support, literally. But so that's really fairly simple. But in my experience, it's kind of limited. After 2,500 hours, 2+ years, I'd say that I'm getting fairly competent at it again. The knowing how to tackle things has been the challenging thing for me. Just like anything in logging, it looks pretty simple, until you try to explain it to somebody that's never done it or train somebody that's never done any of these things that we all do every day. There's a lot to it, and I feel like I'm getting fairly competent, but I've got a long ways to go. I learn something every day, and it seems like I think the single most challenging thing I find is getting back up on the road or situating myself in a way that's practical. There's a huge amount of logistics that go into tethering. That's what I've found. And again, I obviously don't know much about it. There are people who've been tethering much longer than I have, and I'd really be interested in hearing from them. But in my experience, that's the most challenging thing. And the logistics that go into making, making me efficient cutting take a lot of work and a lot of time. I do get to cut bunny slope every once in a while still, and it's a big change to go from 1,500 to 2,500 pieces a day to I'd say 500 to 750 pieces a day. That's kind of a normal average. It's a little bit more. I've gotten 1,200. I've gotten 200. But anyhow, it's a big change between cut and shovel ground. I find, and on these blocks, it's not the easy ground that I look at. It's the hard ground, and a lot of times they might be a pretty decent aspect down to a piece that falls into a creek above an RMZ, and that little piece where it drops in is, it's challenging. So the easy ground, that's cool. That's fairly, easy to get at. But you have to plan. I have to plan for how to get into that real tough spot. And and that tough ground is what drives the block. It's not the easy ground. And getting on and off the road, getting off the road is pretty simple, but in making it so I can get back up on the road, that's something I fight with almost all the time. Every once in a while, the road is wide, or there's a big landing, or there's a flat before the break, which that's ideal. Those flats that run out from the road and then break, those are beautiful because oftentimes, that will give you the chance to snub off a standing tree, and you don't have to really do anything. You can just cut it, and you know where your next road's going to be, so you leave a big stick, where your next road's going to be, and snub off that. The beauty of that, I found, is that you can set your line machine up once, and sometimes you can cut for several days. But that's I find that to be a rarity. Most of the time, I'm on a piece right now that's, the road's about 8 feet wide, and it breaks hard. We're at 2,700 feet, and so it's rocky underneath the little bit of soil that's there. So when they built the road, the outslope is, what little soil there was and rock, and it's loose and it's steep, and it's challenging. And so finding little pockets, digging out little pockets, setting back from your snub point. These are all tricks that I used. I definitely find that staying as far away from that snub point or where I come up off the hill, if there's going to be a snub point, keeping the line machine far back away from that is very helpful. The line runs on the road, and you can actually sometimes use that friction to make use of a short stump, or what you have to give you purchase and use it to snub. Anyhow, those are just a few thoughts that I've had. I think one of the tools that I find super useful, and I imagine most of us are running this now. I run it on a tablet. I've got two tablets in the machine. One is the camera for the the drum on the line machine, and then I've got another one that I had prior to the line machine that I run Avenza on. And I like the tablet. I don't have a smartphone, and I like the tablet because it's right there. It's big, and I can blow it up. And using the Avenza with the georeference map, that's just an incredibly valuable tool for me, I find. And I like, one of the things I notice is that as I do this more, when I get a map of our upcoming unit, I can look at it and see, with the variations in color, that the maps that I see have different colors for different slope aspect, and so I can see from those different colors and also the contour lines pretty much where I'm gonna run what I'd call my primary line, something I'd use to open up a block. And again, it's not like I know much, but these are things that I'm picking up. And like what's something that's somewhat ideal, I'd say, would be when you have a ridge, in yard or ground or steep country. Oftentimes the road will bell out, around that ridge, and so at the point or the bite of that will generally be a landing, and so that hopefully will be a fairly good spot to work with, enough room to turn a pickup around anyhow, let alone set up a yard or a processor, a shovel, or a line machine, a buncher. But that ridge oftentimes will be a super spot, to go off the hill, run down that ridge, cutting as little as possible. And that's what I do. I'll walk it and flag it, and get myself to the bottom point. Hopefully it's like the deepest point of the unit or the piece of ground I'm looking at. Flag that road in, then I can go down that, and that ridge will act as a primary road for me to snub off on either side. And you can kind of picture, that ridge breaking off on both sides. If you go straight down, then as I open myself up at the bottom, then I can snub off to either side and throw the wood into that hole that I've created. And creating that hole can often be a problem. I end up oftentimes throwing the wood back up, to protect the RMZ at the bottom. There's always water at the bottom. You have to protect it. So I throw quite a bit back, straight up the hill, enough to get tree lengths back. And then there's always that point. That can be fairly challenging. Oftentimes it's steep, and there are oftentimes other challenges, rocks or wet or all of the above, alder leaning in from the RMZ. But you get her opened up, then there's that point where you back up and you can start snubbing and falling into the hole, and that's always a really satisfying feeling. And one of the things I've moved more towards is I try to work at night as much as I can. I start at 2, and I try to get off the hill at 2:30, or at least start heading out at 2:30. That's not always the case. I'm sure we can all sympathize. So I oftentimes, like the night before, if I've just got a small chunk to go the next day, I'll shut down and do that layout in the daylight and flag myself my line in. What's even better is sometimes is to open a piece up towards the end of the day, and then in the morning you can just run that line, that established primary trail, and if you've got it opened up, you can just start snubbing and go to town. it's almost like cutting shovel ground, you know, when you can just like fall into the hole. Another thing about working at night, it sounds kind of funny to say this, but I really like, you know, working in that envelope of light. And there are a couple reasons for that. But one of them is that, like, there's definitely a psychological aspect of tether cutting. Sometimes it's more pronounced than others, but you know, sometimes you don't really want to see what you're cutting above. You know, if it's like a cut bank above a road or a cliff or, you know, a really piece of hairy ground. Sometimes it's nice to just see darkness out and you just call it good, you know, and so that actually, I find that helps. And working inside that envelope of light, you know, you really, I find that my focus is on the trees in front of me, you know, and that layout that I've done in the daylight gives me an idea, you know, of what I want to do. If I'm only flagging a trail, I often will kind of like analyze the ass end of it, and you know, I might even ring a tree that would be my first tree, the key to the puzzle, you know, and I know when I cut that tree, it's like I'm gonna swing that uphill, or I'm gonna put it to the right straight down, or the left straight down, or I know what I'm gonna do with that first tree. And then you know, once you cut that first tree, then you're good to go. You know, then you cut another tree, next thing you know, it's time to hit maintenance and go home. So anyhow, those are a couple tricks. You know, we have replaced one set of line. I got 2,000 hours out of it, and you know, that seemed like that was good. You know, that was acceptable life. The guys at Summit, Eric Kroom in particular, you know, his knowledge is very pronounced, and I appreciate his attitude. He's very helpful. He's knowledgeable. He's done it. You know, he's a logger and an innovator, and his knowledge is very helpful, and he's very forthcoming with it. And so replace the line once. Replacing the eye, thanks to the rigging crew, they keep me set up on that, and I've watched a lot of videos on line life, and I take it very seriously, you know, because it's my ass hanging on the line there. So I do that. Walk around the long way every morning, and inspect all my mollies and cables and the drum and machine and the eye. And I generally check the eye at night, or you know, at the end of the day, so that's daylight, or at least so far it is. So I'll slack my chain, pull the shackle up, look at it. It's kind of hard. I generally put a stick in the eye, roll it over so I can get both sides of that. And what I'm looking for is 3 cracked strands. And when I see 3 cracked strands, I'll call up the rigging crew, and they'll come up and splice an eye for me. And I really appreciate that. They're good at it, and they're willing, and they get it done. I try to set it up nicely for them. But the other thing I do, I was greasing, and it's hard to say whether, you know, the grease I think is good, but it's kind of a pain in the neck too. And I've gone just recently to spraying it with cable lube. And it'll be interesting. Eventually, I'll get a hold of somebody and talk about it. But Brian Tours is a tremendous asset. I'd like at some point to meet him. He seems like a super knowledgeable guy. But as I said, you know, Eric Kroom's a hell of a resource for me as well, and also you guys. You know, I mean, but some lube on those components is very important, and so I do that every night. And just, you know, here's the one thing. You know, a while ago, I checked it one night, and I had 1 cracked strand, and the next night I had 4 crack strands, and so we scheduled it and replaced it, and so that's interesting. It gets that point where it's worn, and if you're on really tough ground, it's your ass hanging on it, and three crack strands is the is the point that we resplice it. And on resplicing the line, what we found, I remember the first time, I'm not a cable guy. I've never worked the rigging, and I've always been ground based, and I'm probably too old to learn. But the first time guys came out and spliced a line, I think I cut off like 15 feet. They didn't know. They wanted my opinion. I said, I don't know. I mean, stuff's expensive. Let's 10 feet. That was much too short. And so now what we went to after checking with Alex, which I should have done earlier, but I didn't. So we take off 100 feet, and I believe I run about 200 hours. I log it, but it's hard. I can't remember off the top of my head. Generally about 200 hours, I think, on an eye. And that first 100 feet, that's what really takes the strain. It's and the wear and tear. So and as a result, it gets brittle. And so taking that 100 feet off has been an important thing, and so that's where your cable goes, and eventually you'll get to the point where it's too short, and you'll have places where the laser is telling you you're down to your last wrap or so, so that's one thing. The cable. This is the LX870D, and so I do rub on the chain. It's gotten to the point where I'm on steep ground, and you guys can picture this. Like the line might be coming down like this, and if you're leveled up completely, you may only be like that. Rather than you see what I'm saying? If you're level back, so the chain as you swing, you can make contact, and so the 877, the new Tigercat, has a sloped ass as a result, so you can avoid that. And as compensation, what I find myself doing is like I tilt forward, which again can take a little getting used to when you're on real steep ground, but the motion is kind of like say if you're cutting to the right, you drop down and swing around. If you can picture it, then it just like gets to be second nature there. The beauty of the tethering is that it holds you in place. So you cut a tree, as long as you can, it's a reasonable tree. It's a tree you can handle. You can handle it on the steep ground because the cable is going to keep you rooted and keep you solid. It's awesome once you get used to it. You hear people say, well, you trust the line. Well, it's easy to say trust the line. It takes a while before you're actually, in my experience, it takes a while before, I've actually trusted the line when it gets a little bit sketchy. Yeah. So another thing, I find that, obviously cutting straight up and down the hill and all the tricks to do that, that's super important, makes me more efficient. I find that I cut almost exclusively going down the hill, and part of that is that you can cut, so generally I'm going down the hill, I'm either cutting, going across the hill to the left or going across the hill to the right, but you can cut everything you can reach on either side, but I don't cut across the line, with very few exceptions. If it's a super big tree or with powerful go downhill, sometimes I'll kind of set myself in a spot. If I'm concerned about like the tree running down on me, I might even slack the line a little bit so it's on the ground, and I might cut it uphill across the line, if I can't handle it swinging downhill, if that makes sense, down and around, swinging it, fall it across the line. If it's that big a tree, I don't try to swing it over. It's better to fall it on the line than pick it up and move it, because as we all know, I mean, a disc will cut anything, and the chain links are like that, but I'm sure it'd blow them up, as well as your set of teeth, perhaps the disc too. So yeah, I don't cut across the line. One of the things I find sometimes is like, cutting down the hill, when I'm climbing back up, I might find some wood, that I can get, or maybe maneuver over a little bit. If it's like say this side of a big stump or something that I wouldn't be able to reach on the next pass, I might maneuver over and grab it and, cut, kind of trim up the line as I'm going back up the hill. But in general, I find that it just is more productive and efficient to cut down the hill. And yeah, so anyhow, so those are some things. I love the hot saw. I've run bar saws, but I love the hot saw. It's just it requires maintenance, but in terms of like the actual cutting, it's very low maintenance, and I really appreciate that about it. However, the shortcoming of a hot saw on steep ground is what I'd call back drag, or you got to compensate for the fact that it's a 60-inch disc, and on steep ground you're going to cut a high stump, so small wood, I often find myself tipping it forwards a little bit, breaking it off or breaking the root ball, not breaking the stem, so I can cut a lower stump. Whenever possible, if you cut to the side, then you can create a stump that you don't have to snipe. So anyhow, those are a bunch of my thoughts. I enjoy it. I feel like I'm getting better at it, and it's been kind of humbling, I guess. I've been running Buncher quite a while, and as I said, there's some ease in the actual. You're still running a Buncher. But like the cutting is kind of the easy part of it, and it's what I've found. It's like the knowing how to do things and make it go smoothly, and moving everything around and setting it up and keeping it rolling. That's I think has been the real learning curve for me. So yeah, there you have it. And as again, we really appreciate that people still watch the videos and find them interesting. I'd love to hear from anybody that's interested, and if you're interested in seeing some more stuff, we can't film where I'm cutting, unfortunately, so that won't come back. But for instance, I've got a bunch of tools I've made over these recent years that I think might be helpful to some of you guys, and I've made them and they work good, and so that's something I wouldn't mind showing you if there was some interest. So, anyhow, hopefully I'll hear from you. Appreciate the support, and be safe. Thank you.